Hey there, Fletch from All Things Overlanding here, and today I'm going to be talking about this Vevor e-bike or motorcycle mount that goes into your hitch and allows you to carry something like an e-bike or a motorcycle on the back of your vehicle. I recently picked up an Engway M20 e-bike that I plan to take with me when I go camping and things like that, so I needed something to easily carry it because it's a pretty heavy bike and I didn't want to have to be trying to maneuver it up into the back of my truck when I could just roll it up a ramp onto a carrier on the back. So again, I'm going to unbox this thing, I'm going to kind of show you the assembly of it, I'm going to put it on the truck, and I'm going to put the bike up on it so you can see it in action. But this is a good medium priced bike carrier. So if you're kind of looking for options, you want to know more about this one, stay tuned.
Understand where it came from, but you got it, I got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you gave to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, so let's start by unboxing it. So as you can see, everything comes pretty nicely packaged. It's all wrapped in bubble wrap, protecting the paint. Looks to be in really good shape. It does weigh quite a bit. I'll put the weight of this thing up on the screen here, but it is a pretty heavy box, so be prepared to carry that inside. All right, so now I've got everything laid out here. It does come with some fairly straightforward instructions here. Again, I'm going to kind of walk you through it step by step, try and make this as easy as possible. If you are like me, you don't like to read directions, hopefully this video will show you just exactly what you need to do to put this together. Again, this is a pretty heavy unit, so just be prepared that you're going to have to maneuver this thing on and off of your vehicle. So you need to have a place to store it, and you need to be able to get it on and off the vehicle by yourself. But so let's start with step one, which is where we're going to actually place these tire cradles, so where the bike is going to sit, onto the main assembly here and kind of attach it. All right, so a couple of notes here. You'll notice these reflectors. So basically what you want to do is you want to line up these two holes here with these two holes in the middle. And there's obviously two holes for each side, right? So this arm is going to connect via those two holes. The other side's going to connect via those two holes. And you want to make sure that you've got your reflectors pointing towards the back on both sides of the bike carrier. These are basically just to warn traffic behind you so they can see the reflection from the reflectors and they know that you've got a bike carrier on the back that's sticking out the back of your vehicle. You also want to make sure that these are facing up. These are basically the hook that you're going to use for your ramp. So when you want to put the bike on it or take it off, you're going to take the ramp which sits up here in front of the actual bike carrier itself. That's where you store it. And you would attach it to this little hook here, and then that's what your ramp is going to go down from. So make sure those are pointing up like that. And then once you've done that, then you should be in good shape to start installing these arms onto the carrier. So another just sort of general tip is always sort of lay out your bolts and your nuts and your washers and everything. Just check that you've got everything that you need. Make sure you've got, you know, your hitch pin here that's going to attach your carrier to your hitch, obviously. You've got your cotter pins for that. You've got these, which are actually to attach your ramp to the carrier, which we'll show you that here in a second. But then you want to make sure you've got all these bolts. So these are the bolts that I'm using to attach the arms to the main body of the carrier. These are the shorter M10 bolts here, but so make sure that you're using these shorter bolts with the full body thread all the way up with the lock nuts that match with those, and putting washers on them. All right, so now that we've got our two arms attached to sort of the main body of the bike mount, we're going to move on to step two. In step two, what we're doing is we're going to attach these two bridge supports. So basically they're each going to rest on top of here. Just kind of give this whole thing some structure. You're going to drop these slightly longer M10 bolts down through, so the ones with the partial threading on them is what we're going to use for this. We're going to drop it down through the top here, and then put a nut up through the bottom with a washer, and we're going to do that on both sides. So then in addition to the bridge supports, which again we're going to put the nuts on here in a second, we're going to tighten that all down, you also need to install these ramp supports. And the thing you're going to notice with these is that one of them, this one here on the end, actually has a threaded nut inside of it, whereas the others are just normal holes, right? So what you want to do is, this is going to mount flat up underneath of the body of this thing here, and actually it's going to mount on the bottom of these bridge supports, so you're just going to put your nuts around that and then tighten this down. So for example, I've got the threaded nut out here on the end. I'm using the two M10 bolts that I dropped down through the bridge supports, and then I'm going to put the nuts on the bottom here, and that's what's actually going to hold this ramp support up. And then that threaded nut is what's going to allow you to really quickly use these sort of hand screws to attach your ramp and detach your ramp really quickly to these supports to keep your ramp in place. And then when you need it, you undo these knobs and you pull your ramp off, you get your bike on and off, you put it back on here at the ramp, and then you tighten it down with these knobs again. So again, before you tighten down the nuts on the bridge supports, make sure that you put your ramp supports on the bottom, and then you're using those same nuts and bolts that hold the bridge supports on to hold this on. Also, these are your final 4 of the M10 nuts, so you should have 4 more of these left. These are going to be the last of the smaller nuts, and then for these big bolts that are going to go across to basically serve as the support for your bike so that you can roll it up on here, those are M12, so they're bigger. They have bigger nuts, so you can't really get it wrong. You have to use the right ones, but make sure that you've got everything that you need before you start to build this thing. So now one sort of tip here is that it's actually kind of tricky to hold this ramp support up while also working a couple of wrenches to tighten down these bolts, and also keeping this in between the nut and that. So my advice to you, and kind of the way that I'm tackling that, is I just, very lightly put the nuts on the bottom of these bolts so these bridge supports don't fall off, and then I'm going to flip it upside down. I'm going to lay the ramp support on top of it, and then I'm going to put a wrench on the bottom of this. I'm going to let this just rest on the upside down carrier, and then I'm going to tighten it down. So you'll see what I mean here in a second. I'm going to flip it over. So now that I've flipped it over, all I have to do is, you have to remember which end is which, right? So the hitch end back there with the holes in it is the opposite of where you want your threaded nut to end up. So this one's basically going to sit just like this, and the other one is going to sit just like that with the threaded nut out and the flat side up, and the nut on the bottom. But again, now I can undo this nut, set that down on top of it, finger tight thread the nut back onto the bolt so that it stays put, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to undo the nut and put that down on top of it. I'm going to finger tighten that nut, and now all I have to do is simply tighten these down. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Alright, so now that we've got our bridge supports on and we've got our ramp supports on, that's the end of step 2. It's time for step 3. Step 3 consists basically of using these big carriage bolts, say they're M12 by 200, so these big long carriage bolts, to again basically make a floor for the bike tires to sit on. Now you get 7 of these with the threading on them, and then you get one that does not have threading, but it has a little hole in it for a cotter pin, and I'm going to explain to you where that one goes and what it's for here in just a second. So basically you're going to put these in these, there's 4 holes on each side, and you're going to put them all in these 4. Now the second hole in is where they show it in the instructions as being the one with the cotter pin in it. So I'm going to put that one right here in the second spot. Just like that. Basically the purpose of that one is that when you put your bike up here, you can actually put this through the tire of the bike to hold it in place so that it can't bounce up and down. And then you're going to have straps that come with it as well that you can use to strap the bike down to the holder. That is one of the nice things about this Vevor mount, is that it comes with a bag of straps. So you don't have to provide your own straps or buy other straps. So they're actually included with this mount, which not all of them include that. So I liked that about this kit. So now let's get these carriage bolts all in here, and then I'll show you what that looks like. And then we'll finish up with the last couple steps and we'll be all set. Now for all these bolts, we are going to use the larger washers. So you should have enough for those. And I'm going to put them on all 7 of them that are going to be screwed down. And then we're going to tighten down the nuts, and then we're almost done. There's just a couple more steps. Alright, so as you can see, it's pretty much all assembled. Now all I have to do is I'm going to throw the ramp on here really quick, which I'll show you that. And then it goes into the hitch, and there is sort of a collar that goes with it. And basically what it is, it's a big U-bolt with a flat piece of steel underneath there. And what you're going to do is you're going to cinch this down on top of the bar that goes into your hitch, and you're going to tighten that down. And what it does is it's going to keep it from rattling. So if you've got a bike on the back and it's just got the hitch pin holding this thing in, then it's possible that this whole assembly with the weight of that bike could be rattling around and making some noise. So again, they include this sort of like hitch collar, if you will, to tighten this down and essentially sandwich your actual hitch and the mount together so that they can't move. So that's what this thing is. That'll be the last step that I need to put on here, and then we'll be ready to put the bike on it. All right, so now you've got your ramp mounted with the 2 knobs basically, which I'm going to take off to show you here in a second to how I'm going to put the bike on here, but that's okay. I just wanted to show you the thing fully assembled. And then again, all I have to do is pick this up, pull it out. I'm going to lift my tailgate up. I'm going to shove it into the hitch, and then I'm going to put the hitch pin through it. I'm going to put that collar on it, and then we're ready to mount the bike. One nice sort of touch is they put the actual collar in another bag so that it doesn't, you know, rattle against that U-bolt and scratch up the paint, make it rust quicker. Your hitch pin may need a little bit of extra persuasion. My hitch is also clogged full of mud from off-roading, so that's part of it. Put your cotter pin in just to make sure that thing can't come out, and then we just have to put our collar on, and then we're all set. Now the way that you mount this collar is you basically take the U-bolt, drop it down on the top, drop it through these holes, and then again with this sort of angled piece facing towards the back that sort of forces it to hold this part underneath of your hitch, then that will keep it from moving around and keep it nice and tight. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that on there. All right, so all I have to do now is tighten down those couple of bolts, and then we're all done. All right, so now I'm going to toss my Ingwe M20 e-bike up onto the rack. I'm going to kind of show you that. Again, it's pretty heavy for an e-bike. It's a little over 100 pounds, maybe 105 pounds, but this thing will actually hold up to 600 pounds. It's actually meant to be a motorcycle carrier. I wanted to go on the heavy side because, again, it's a heavy bike, so I'd rather go heavier. Plus, if I ever get a motorcycle or something, now I'm covered for that, and I'm covered for my e-bike. I can carry stuff like that on anything with a hitch, basically, and it's removable, which is nice. So I'm going to pull the ramp off, I'm going to put it on here, I'm going to roll the bike up on here, I'm going to show you what that looks like and how difficult it is for a 100-pound bike to get on this, or easy, hopefully, and I'll let you know my thoughts. Alright, so what I ended up doing there was kind of lifting on the back a little bit, because if you push on the front, it kind of tends to push down on the ramp and try to move it. But as you can see, now that it's up there, it's pretty easy to move. But then basically what you would do is just pick your ramp up, put it back on here, use the finger knobs, attach that back down, strap your bike down, and you're good to go. Alright, but so that will do it for the Vevor bike motorcycle carrier. I hope that helped you a little bit if you were trying to figure out how to put this together, or if you're looking for options to carry something like a heavy e-bike or a motorcycle. Again, this thing will hold up to 600 pounds, which is pretty impressive. My bike's a little over 100, so plenty of extra wiggle room and strength in this unit to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere with this bike on the back. I do off-road, and as you can see from my bike, it's filthy, and my truck is too. So I do plan to take this thing with me when I go overlanding and camping. That's kind of my goal, is to have the bike with me. You know, when I get to camp, I've got something I can scoot around on, just go check out things, hit up some trails and things like that. So again, I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, click that like button. If you're not already, make sure to click the subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when new videos drop. I do a couple every week, usually something like this, like some sort of like a gear do-it-yourself install, something like that along those lines, having to do with camping, overlanding, that kind of thing, or vehicle modifications. And then I've also got a weekly podcast slash vlog that I do, kind of talking about overlanding in general. So if any of that stuff is stuff you're into, or if you're a Nissan person, as you can see, I've got a couple Nissans here. I've got a ton of Nissan content too. So anyways, love to have you as a subscriber. So right down below this video is a join button. That's kind of a newer thing that I'm trying out here on YouTube. No pressure whatsoever, but if you'd like to support the channel, get early access to the videos and some other perks, you can click on that join button, check it out, learn more about it, and you're welcome to support the channel. Every little bit helps, so thanks for considering it. Also in the description down below are links to all my other social channels, so wherever you want to come hang out, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I'm all over the place, so if you want to learn more or see more all things overlanding, come check those out. There's also a link to my website down below where I've got funny overlanding camping patches and stickers, so if you're into that kind of stuff, check that link out. There'll also be a link to the bike and also the carrier, so if you're looking for that, those links will be in the description to make finding them as easy as possible. And then last but not least, there is a link to my Patreon page where we've got a 24/7 Discord, and we do like a once-a-month call, and we take some trips sometimes. So if you want even more all things overlanding, that's an option. Or there's the Newbie Overlanders Facebook group, totally free to join, a bunch of awesome people in that group. So wherever you want to hang out, we'd love to have you, and you can learn about overlanding. So again, I hope that was helpful for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.